Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this edition of The Circle. We're gathered here in this beautiful environment of Hain et Salma on the outskirts of Doha for what will be a monthly gathering where we come together to hear from a truly inspiring individual. An individual who's confronted challenges, problems going on in the world, in the community around us, some of which I'm sure we have experienced or are experiencing, and have answered that question that many of us, I'm sure, ask ourselves: what difference can I make? What can I do to try and contribute to solving some of these challenges? Well, these individuals that we will hear from, they haven't stopped at the question. Instead, they found the courage and the vision to come up with the answer and say, I can make a difference. I can contribute to change. Well, we're delighted tonight to be able to hear from Eduardo Moreira. Let me tell you a little bit about his background. He is one of Brazil's top 3 leading economists, and he comes from quite a privileged background, having graduated from the University of California, having worked at one of the world's top investment banks, but he wasn't content with that very comfortable lifestyle. While traveling through the Amazon forest, he was confronted face to face with some of the realities of injustice, poverty, and hardship that confronts the world today. Well, he didn't scurry back to his comfortable little haven. He came up with initiatives that literally touched the lives of thousands of people. And that's what we're going to learn about tonight. All right, so with that intro, Eduardo, I would say good evening, but I think it's good afternoon there.
Yes, it's 1 hour, 7 minutes in Brazil, but good evening to you all. I feel honored to be here talking to you tonight, and I just want to use my experience and my knowledge to maybe give some useful information to you guys, because it's a pretty important moment of our planet. It's a pretty important moment of our society. And if we don't even try to do anything, then we for sure are defeated. So I think that the only way we can be sure that we have been defeated is that if we stop trying to do something. So congratulations for your effort to gather those people tonight to discuss these issues and trying to do something.
Thank you so much, Eduardo. Eduardo, you have a really interesting story. I read and read, and the more I read, the more questions I had than answers. So I want to start with the first basic one. I looked in your background, Eduardo. I mean, you graduated from some of the most prestigious universities in the world, which are very much considered up there with the elite institutions, academic institutions in the world. You then worked as a partner in an investment banking firm, again in the elite. You were nominated as one of Brazil's top 3 economists. So you're one of 3 human beings right now in Brazil in terms of your knowledge of economics. You had every incentive just to enjoy a good life and go on with the mainstream model, which unfortunately, as we know, is creating not only Brazil, but around the world, inequality. The stats from organizations show that we globally are at unprecedented levels of inequality in wealth distribution. Why did you choose a different path? What prompted you to say, instead of just taking your salary, going home, look after your kids and family, enjoy life, that you want to go head to head some of the most powerful forces in the world?
Well, first, I would like to discuss an assumption that you said in your question, which is you could just live a good life. We could ask, what is a good life? Have a good car, live in a large house, have like expensive clothes. Is this a good life? And I ask you that because most of the people I know in Brazil that drive expensive cars, live on luxury houses, have like beach houses and all those things. Those people are maybe the ones that I know that take more pills for anxiety, for depression, for all sorts of mental conditions. They cannot enjoy a good life with their families. They have very troublesome relationship with their kids, and they don't usually they don't practice sports. Their hobbies are something that they cannot dedicate their part of their life to. So maybe what we're calling a good life here is a nice bank account. That's the
Most
first thing.
people, Eduardo, most people will be happy with a nice bank account, right? And they wouldn't think about the pills until it's too late. You
I think they would
obviously,
be proud. I think they would be proud. I wouldn't say they would be happy, because there's a difference between being proud and being happy, because people, they feel good about talking to the others. They have whatever amount of $1 million in their account. We live in a society of competition. We're always comparing ourselves to the others. And we learned that the best way to compare ourselves to the others is not on how we feel, but it's about what we have. So yes, considering this paradigm, I would live like a successful life. Instead of good life, I would put a successful life in the parameters that we consider. But I live in Brazil, and if I exit my house here and I walk, and I live in one of the most expensive districts of São Paulo, which is the most wealthy city, the wealthiest city of Brazil. And if I walk maybe like 300 steps from my house, I will on overpass here, underpass, sorry, here really beside my house, I would see some families living on the street, and with some kids which are the same age of my kids, and kids that are just like walking with barefoot. They have no condition that someone would look and say, "Hey, there's some dignity there," and there's no dignity at all there. So it's impossible. It's impossible, and that's. I'm not saying something new. I mean, Martin Luther King said that. Malcolm X said that. Nelson Mandela said that. If there are people suffering in other places, it's impossible to live a life without suffering. And there's a whole industry to hide this suffering from us. And we pay for this industry too. We pay for this industry to hide this suffering from us, because we feel better when this suffering of the world is it's hidden from us. But when you go to see what's going on, no matter how expensive your car is, how big your house is, I think no one can assume to be happy.
all right, Eduardo, you established the Liberty Institute of Knowledge, if I'm translating it correctly, and it's become quite successful. It's on its way, I believe, to becoming a university. However, a series of courses, you involve some of the top academics from around the world. From even I was surprised to see mainstream institutions. We're not talking about people on the fringe. These are very well-known academic figures in the world. And you give 30,000, I think the number was 30,000 free scholarships to people.
Yes.
First of all, explain to us, what is the model that the Liberty Institute of Knowledge is trying to disseminate to people? What alternative economic order model are you promoting?
First, if I can give just one step back, I think that the most important conclusion that I came to in my life is that we react in stories that are told to us. I don't know. I can see the people that are attending this meeting on the room, and I don't know each one, but I can be pretty sure that each one of them is doing with their lives whatever they think is the best for them and for the world. The problem is, what is the story that was told to each one in the room. We react on stories. I mean, we praise our God depending on the stories that were told to us since we were born. We have enemies because we learn to hate people because of stories that were told since we were born. For instance, I'm a big defender of the Amazon jungle. I do all campaigns, and whatever I can do to help protect the Amazon jungle, I would do. But the thing is, I have never seen the Amazon jungle. I have never been to the Amazon jungle. So actually, what I defend is a story, not a fact. The problem is, and that's the most important question that exists, in my opinion, which story reaches people? Who comments those stories? Because depending on those stories, we will hate Jewish or we will hate Palestinians. Depending on the story, we will hate Muslims or we will hate Catholics. Depending on the stories, we would think that the market is the only solution to the world, or we would think that wealth distribution can be a solution. So I decided that the mainstream academics, the mainstream media, the mainstream information that reaches people is basically the same information. I mean, it's the same people that get interviewed on all TV channels in Brazil, the mainstream channels in Brazil. It's the same professors that are taken as the most prominent characters on their subjects of interest. So I decided that I would create a structure to fight about the version of the story that is passed to people, so that people could react to the world, not only having one view of the world, but to having another view of the world. And then comes the second question. Who tells us the stories that shapes our character and shapes our opinions? Number one, our schools, either like the high school, college, university, whatever school that we attend. The academic is one way that we receive our stories. The other way we receive our stories is through news broadcasts and TVs and movies and entertainment. And so I decided to start with the academics.
Is that what prompted you, in addition to establishing the ICL, the Liberty Institute of Knowledge, you've also, I should mention, established a YouTube channel, which has the largest independent journalism channel on Brazilian YouTube, larger than even some of the mainstream global networks. I won't mention the names, not make it too personal. But what I'm hearing you say is that you're trying to correct or to tell a different narrative on both journalism and in education. But what is that narrative? In a nutshell, if you were to break it down, what is the Eduardo narrative of how the world could solve inequality?
Here's the thing, Sami, and that's a very good question. I don't want to give the narrative. I want to give the freedom of narratives to the journalists and to the teachers. And there's a big difference on that. Because if I just decide that I would stick up to another narrative, and that would be, my world, this narrative, I would just be whatever they are with an opposite signal, you know? But the thing is, what is behind the control of all this media, in my opinion, is the way they are funded. So our biggest challenge was, how can we fund an initiative without any advertisement? How can we fund our initiative without money from institutions that are owned by big corporations? And that was a very hard question to solve. So here's what we decided. First, we decided to do this Institute of Knowledge, which is kind of a university of everything to everyone. And we invited the best professors of Brazil and the best professors of MIT, Sorbonne, University of Berlin, and all the main universities of the world. For instance, just to give you some names, Noam Chomsky, Domenico Di Masi, Michael Sandel, and names like Wolfgang Schüttler, and most of the most preeminent names of the main universities of the world. And then we said, if we can reach a certain amount of people in Brazil that would pay like a very small amount of money, but multiplied by the large amount of people, it could make us pay good salaries to these teachers, giving them the absolute freedom to teach whatever they think is their narrative of the world. That would be something very new in the world. So we did the following system. We started with 14 courses, 14 courses. Now we have 300 courses in our institute. And when I say 300 courses, it's not 300 videos on YouTube. It's 300 full courses, certificate given after people finish the courses on social sciences, on professional skills, on history, on on foreign languages, on a very broad type of knowledge. The thing is, the people who paid the monthly fee, they pay $8 a month to study the 300 courses here in Brazil with the main teachers of the world. Just so you have an idea, one course in Brazil with one of those teachers could cost you about $100 a month. One course. We give the 300 course to the whole family for $8. But that was not enough. Why was that not enough? Because there are some people in Brazil that don't have the $8 to pay a month. And we wanted those people to study too. So we decided to charge a second type of monthly fee, which instead of being $8, was $11. And with these $3 extra, we would give full scholarships for people that could not pay. So now we have about 60,000 people who pay the $8 or $11 a month, and 30,000 people that don't pay a single dollar to study with the best teachers of the world. But then we had another problem, Sami, if I might, which is I have to tell people that our institute exists. And tell people now means to advertise on YouTube, on Facebook, on the social media, because that's where everybody gets known today. And it's expensive to advertise on these media. So what I decided to do was to do a news channel like Al Jazeera, like Global, like NBC, CBN, etc. So I did a news channel without advertisement too. And it's the largest audience in the world now of a TV channel without advertisement and without support from the audience. I don't even monetize the videos on YouTube. So all journalists.
Eduardo, so it's entirely community funded? You don't take money from companies or sponsors or in some shape or form?
It's more than that. It's not even community funded, because I didn't want to get dependent of my audience, because that's a problem too. Let's suppose I'm a progressist in Brazil, and then all my audience votes for our president in Brazil, which is Lula, which is what the progressists in Brazil, who they vote for. If I have to criticize Lula, I cannot criticize it because I will lose my financial support from my audience. So the idea was to get the money from the courses that has nothing to do with the TV shows, and this money funds the news programs. And then the news programs calls the attention because we have the main journalists of Brazil hired by this TV show, and that produces the great content, and that brings audience, which is the audience where I can show my courses. If they decide to do the courses, they do the courses and then generate more revenues that I can spend on generating content. And then content close the cycle.
Michael, you've got a loop going, but
Yes.
understand these projects and institutions you've set up, they have spurred actual initiatives that have benefited people on the ground, from indigenous communities facing land genocide and extinction to marginalized communities facing exploitation from gambling companies. Explain to us the practical impacts that these initiatives have had in changing people's lives and addressing inequality.
Great, Sami. Well, first, I decided to live part of my days inside these poor communities in Brazil. And these are not only very poor communities that live by trying to find food on the garbage of medium class houses in Brazil, but it's not only poor, but also very dangerous. We're talking about communities where people die every single day, either communities of indigenous people, but also metropolitan communities where you have on the largest capitals of Brazil, a lot of people living without sewage, without clean water and all those things. So what I decided is that I would not just visit their houses, because I didn't feel it was correct just to visit them. It was like visiting a zoo, and here's the elephant, here's the giraffe, here's the camel, here's the poor people. I didn't feel that was respectful. So I decided that I would have to live for some weeks with them, eat whatever they eat, sleep in the same conditions, to pass through the same risks, to try to minimally understand what they lived. And that changed completely my perception about inequality, and that made the bond of myself with those people. It's a bond that's not easy to break, because you get compassion, you share their suffering, even though it's a small part of it, but you're actually sharing their suffering. So when we did that, and I came back to build this institute, we decided that not only the scholarships would be given to those people, but that we would gather a community around our institute where we would make campaigns to raise funds for whatever those people needs. And also we would be a tool of pressure to the authorities of Brazil, to the legislative authorities, and also to the executive powers in Brazil, to demand what the Constitution obliged them to offer to those people. So we have raised millions of dollars for those people to build their plantations, to get water from the ground, to build houses for them, to build like a health places where they can find a doctor. And we also use our political power, our soft power having the institute, because I told you about these 90,000 people who are members of the institute, but we are watched by millions of people every day in Brazil. Let's remember, Brazil has more than 200 million people living in Brazil. So we are maybe the most influential channel in Brazil for political reasons. And then we started to pressure the government and the congressman to stop with what the online bets companies are doing in Brazil, with what the prostitution companies are doing in Brazil, with what is going on with the agricultural people, with the forest in Brazil. So we actually got investigations that started because of our work. We got laws that were implemented because of our work. And then we reached like really the lives of millions of people in Brazil.
Eduardo, what was the starting point though? How does one, I'm listening tonight to Eduardo Moreira and I'm feeling inspired. How do I go from a person with an idea to actually putting it into reality? Is it a matter of first working on funding? Is the important first step setting up an organization? Or I was speaking to young people in London a few days ago who said maybe the best thing is just start working and then we'll figure out the other details. And I'm not sure, I'd like you to share that perspective. How do you take that first step?
I think each one has a way to contribute, and we could not compare contributions. We could not say that if someone helped like 1 million people, this person is 1 million times better than a person that helped one person only. You know, I think that each one of us has like a superpower, and maybe this superpower is simply like being nice to someone who's passing through a very tough time on their lives. But the most important thing, yeah.
Sorry, on that note, Eduardo, be nice to someone who's passing. I read a story that actually that was part of the catalyst for you. You were traveling through a rural area, and you said this sentence. I heard that no matter where I went, I always found a family in a marginalized community who would give me a place to stay at night. And I wondered if they came to the rich areas, would they find the same experience? So sorry to interrupt you, but just tell us, please.
Perfect. I have never entered a house, however poor those people are, and we're talking about people that get rest of food from garbage cans from other houses. I have never entered a house where people didn't invite me to stay the night, either sleeping on the ground, houses that don't have walls, or offering me part of what they had. And the question I asked myself was, if those people, if they knocked my door, would I open my door to them and let them sleep at my child's room? The real answer is that probably not. That's the real answer. And there's something wrong on that, because they are not such a thing as second-class citizens. They're not like first tier and second tier of human beings. At least that's what in what I believe. But you said something, Sami, which is very important, which is to have an idea. It's something that, of course, that has a value, and it's very important to have good ideas. To have an idea and put this idea to work, it's harder and it's more important, but it's not, in my opinion, the most important thing. The most important thing is to have an idea, to put the idea to work, and to keep resisting with this idea working through time. That's the hardest thing to do, because on the beginning, you're inspired. On the beginning, you're motivated. On the beginning, you are like, we have a demand of people that was like a hidden, a demand that was there waiting for someone to appear with that. But after a few months, people are not motivated. You're not the new idea anymore. Yeah, and problems start to begin, and money starts to be a problem too. So the most difficult thing is to keep on, in my opinion. To keep on is the hardest thing, because like today, we're having a great meeting here. It's something that is new from what I understand. People want to know what the circle is about. People wanted to hear the first meeting here. But maybe like in 4 or 5 months, it would be hard, because a friend of yours that you called to be tonight, he would say, oh, I went the first and the second time because Sam is my friend. I don't need to go anymore. I already got inspired. So the hardest thing is to keep on moving things when things get tough, and that's what I think we can dedicate ourselves to leave legacies, to establish things that will last even when we're not there anymore.
Thank you for that. Maybe I'll make sure I pay everybody some money to come back a second time, just so. But on a more, I want to ask you on a personal note, and then I'm going to open up the floor for questions. So if everyone wants to start putting their thinking cap on, we'll try and get a microphone shortly to you. If I may ask you on a personal note, do you ever feel overwhelmed? Like, was there a point when you felt like, I can't keep doing this? I heard, maybe you can tell me if this is true, I heard you receive death threats daily. Is that true?
Well, you know where I was? Remember you called me like an hour ago and you said, Eduardo, let's test the microphone and everything. I told you, I'm arriving at home. Can I call you in 20 minutes? Do you know where I was?
I have no idea.
I was on the police station. I was giving a testimony on one of the biggest prostitution corporations in Brazil that I made. I denunciated them, and I started to receive threats. They stopped their car in the entrance of the garage of our news channel, not letting anyone go inside. A lot of men with many tattoos wearing black, they started taking photographs of everyone in our company. And they sent me a black plastic bag, which is where they put dead people in Brazil, with my name on the top to my attention in our company. I was there right now, you know. And 2 days ago, I was participating on a meeting also on the judicial system here in Brazil with the people that they finally caught, the people who invaded my house 2 years ago, and they really turned the house upside down, and they made like my family completely scared until today. So it's very, very hard.
Courage to keep going, Eduardo. What keeps you?
I don't have a rational answer, Sami. I lost the amount of times where I came home and my wife was crying. My kids, they still sleep in my. They were not sleeping on their. They were already sleeping on their rooms. Now they sleep in my room every night because they feel afraid that someone will break in our house. I've been to the police station many times to make a bulletin of a death threat. And so, I think every week, last week was maybe the toughest week ever for me. There was like 2 days that I couldn't like stand up from bed, you know, when I was like, I just cannot do that because I cannot put my family into this situation. I don't have the right to do it, you know. But then suddenly I'm doing that again, you know, and I think it has to do with this experience of living with those people, you know, because if I don't do it, I feel like a traitor because they receive me in their house. They show me what they're passing through. So if I come to my house, to the air conditioner, to a nice bed, to a fridge which is full of things to eat, and I don't do nothing to those guys who receive me in their home, I'm a traitor, you know? So I think it comes from there. But honestly, that's a rational thinking. And I think it's much more than a rational thing to keep doing that.
That's clearly you have a lot of commitment. We wish the best for you and, of course, your family in facing that. Thank you for sharing that experience with us. I think this might be a good opportunity now to see if we have any questions from the floor. If anybody has a question, could I kindly ask you to raise your hand? We'll get a microphone to you, and then the usher Jamal, the gentleman in the second row, and then he'll take the mic to the next person. So if another person has a question, let me know as well.
Thank you very much. My name is Sami Zeidan. First of all, thank you very much for your inspiring story. This is absolutely amazing. I congratulate you on what you're doing. If they threaten you again and said you that, like, tell them you had friends in Russia.
A good idea.
Now, regards to the question, well, obviously, we as independent Russian journalists, we are, some of us are on the fence with regard to this fix you kill. Some are overwhelmed, some are underwhelmed. Like right now, as we speak, there was this big peace summit in Kazan, and obviously, while the official So if you does this as the next big thing for the world, none of us are wondering whether the BRICS Union can really be the alternative to all other unions that are shaping out the world, such as the EU, and NATO, etc., etc. Some of us need for today ones are sort of underwhelmed because we, at the moment, do not, while we welcome the interaction between countries other than sort of countries in the American axis, if you like, we also like worried that these are the examples of transactional diplomacy rather than from unity and the drive to change the world, because there is no common currency, for instance. There is not enough exchange of tourists between our countries. And there I see the union where India and China are competing on who will assemble the iPhone. Is that idea big enough? That's my fear. What do you think? I would very much like to. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, let me start answering you by telling you about an experience that I had like a few months ago. Of course, the first thing that people start calling me in Brazil when I started doing what I do today is that you're a communist. That was the number one thing that people start saying. You're a communist, and we have to fight against the communists, blah, 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 blah. And in Brazil, when they, one way that they try to attack you is that they say, why don't you go live in Cuba? Why don't you go live in Venezuela if you're a communist? So there's an expression in Brazil which is like, go to Cuba, you know? It's like if they attack you saying, go to Cuba. So what I decided to do is that, well, that's an idea. I'll go to Cuba. I'll visit, I've never been to Cuba. So I'll go to Cuba and I'll record a documentary on my visit to Cuba. So I visit Cuba and I talk to Diaz-Canel, the president of Cuba. I talk to the president of the legislator there, of the deputy's house there. I talk to people on the street. I talk to entrepreneurs. I talk to farmers. And I did a documentary, which is a documentary funded by us too. No companies, no advertisements. And I'm going next week to Los Angeles because the documentary was chosen to compete on the main festival of Brazilian movies of the world, to compete on the documentary category. And the thing is, after I visit Cuba, I was like, wait a minute, they didn't prohibit me to film anything. I mean, these are people that are so nice to us, people that are warm to us. The president was telling, I mean, he was like a person that could be a friend of mine in Brazil. There were no monsters there. And then if you look what's going on with Cuba, United States had just decided unilaterally that the world could not do any kind of deal with Cuba. And the UN had voted many times that the world should do things with Cuba. And the result of every time they decide to vote that, it's like more than 100 in favor of dropping this block to Cuba, and 2 voting in favor of having the block. But it makes no difference. It makes no difference if the world, in the entire world, votes against, and if the United States votes in favor. So I think that when I see that, I say, so why do we have a UN? Why do you have these multilateral institutions if they cannot make a difference when there are millions of people starving? Look what's going on in Palestine now. And so the world decide that this has to stop. But United States decide that it doesn't have to stop because it has to keep their base in Israel for political reasons. So look, I'm not entering in the merit of each of the decisions. And it's very dangerous for us to quickly jump into the merit. I'm not jumping into the merit. I'm jumping into your question, which is the global organization that we have today, that we pretend to have multilateral institutions with power, but we don't have. Cuba is a great example of that. The war in Palestine is a great example on that. So the BRICS, of course, it's very important to have an organization like the BRICS, but I think it's not only that. It's not only like making the BRICS stronger. It's making United States not the owner of the world. I have nothing against the United States. I study in the United States. I have nothing against the people of the United States, but I have something against having one country that can decide anyone in the world if they are democratic or not democratic. So if you have two regimes, both regimes, people do not vote on both regimes. If one is a friend of the United States, it's a democracy. If the other is not a friend of the United States, it's a dictatorship. That cannot be like that. It's impossible to dream with a better world if we have a world that has an owner.
Thank you, Eduardo. And if you go back to Cuba, please take me with you. I love Havana.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else has a question?
You know what? Sorry, Samis. You know what we can do, and I can offer you. I can send you the movie. You can You can have this movie to make an exhibition to people. We have it with English subtitles for this festival. I would be very glad to give you this possibility.
Pleasure. With pleasure, Eduardo. We'll talk about that after this. Please send it to us. Maybe we can see if we can arrange a screening somehow. All right. Anyone else have a question? Oh, the gentleman here in the front row. We get.
Thank you so much. My name is Salah from UNESCO. And I really thank you for this very inspiring share with us. And I think I have a lot to learn from it. So I think many other parts of the world need this exact same initiative that you have shared with us today. And I was wondering if you know of any other similar initiatives that were inspired by your work that were implemented in other parts of the world. And if, for example, institutes or community-led organizations in Africa, for example, they would like to partner with you or work in partnership jointly with you to share the same thing. In many parts of Africa who are desperate in such initiative. If you can share with us any companies that you would know of or how to start it. And the other question is, I'm sure with all the work that you're doing, you have changed some lives. Do you have any monitoring or tracking system that you can really follow the lives of the people you have impacted and have any success story like the people who have learned from the courses, follow the courses that you are offering to them? How did this impact their lives? How did it change their lives? Because after all, this is the final objective that you are aiming at, that we are all working. If you can share with us those ideas, I would be really grateful. Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
Well, regarding the first question, you know, the funny thing is that when you build something which is unique, like the institute we have built, because it is unique, there are some articles on German and many other European countries. There was one in Portugal talking about our experience. And this is something really unique, like an academic center of more than 300 courses with the main professors of the world, where almost half of the students don't pay even a single dollar, and the others pay a symbolic value. It's unique. It's really unique in the world. The thing is, when people see that, they say, Eduardo, you build something that people cannot compete against you. See how we go back to the capitalist trap. And I don't want that. I want a lot of people to copy what I'm doing. If you tell me, Eduardo, what is your dream today? I'll tell you, my dream is to go to my ranch and live in my ranch with my family, because there are like 100 institutes like my institute, and I don't have to have this institute anymore. So I don't want to, because people always think about market share. So now we have like the biggest market share that we could ever imagine, because we are the only one that does that. But we would like to see this being copied and this being made in many other countries. There's something that it's really promising, which is artificial intelligence. What I think is that maybe in a manner, maybe of months, or if not months, 1 year or 2 years, all courses that we have on our institute, they could be broadcasted in other countries on their language with the same professors on their language, and be adapted like that to other countries, and they could have access to all the material that we have gathered, and learn Excel and learn PowerPoint and learn foreign language from what we have done. So this is something that we think that could take us to the rest of the world. We also are available for anyone in the world that want to come here and learn what we do, to mimic, to copy that, and take that to their countries. We're 100% available. We have nothing to hide on our model, and we're more than happy to teach people what we do. And about monitoring the change in the lives of people, here's what we do. How do we give those scholarships? That's an important question, because look the problem that we had. We have to see who deserves a scholarship that doesn't have the money to pay $8, and who does not deserve the scholarship. But if we had to build a department to study each application, to decide if they should be granted a scholarship or not, we would spend more with this department that we could give scholarships. So what we did was to do a partnership with institutions in Brazil, with ONGs, with associations, with unions, with civil organizations, that they bring us the names that they decided that need a scholarship. And with no questions asked, we give the scholarship. So we never denied one single scholarship, and we have partnerships with more than 50 different associations and organizations in Brazil. So they are the ones that can monitor more closely what's going on, because by doing that, we also don't put a weight, a burden, economic burden in our company that will limit us on how much we can draw in terms of giving more scholarships. So that's the way we give this to them. It's a good way for them to attract more people to their organizations. It's a good way of them to grow and to capitalize our participation on the communities, not depending only on us. I don't believe in power that is getting centralized and centralized and centralized. I believe in power which is spread to people, so we could always decide collectively.
But briefly, Eduardo, because the gentleman was asking about any examples of lives that you've seen change and improve. And I'm sure as you travel back and forth into some of these communities, the indigenous communities, the Amazon communities, you must have seen some examples of lives changing, improving. Just give us a brief, short example of that to inspire us.
Hundreds. Okay, I'll give you some examples. A community of peasants in Brazil. There's a movement in Brazil called No Land Peasants, which is people that live on the countryside. They don't have land, they don't have money, and they occupy some land and try to to make their living by planting and having their community helping each other. One of them that we visited, they didn't have access to water. So they would have to walk kilometers in Brazil to carry some dirty water to offer to this community. So all the children had a lot of diseases because of this water with bad quality, and the people would have to carry those waters and not stay with their kids. So we implemented a system on this community where they could take water from underground. It cost about 100,000 reais, about 20,000 US dollars. And now we have 300 people that have full access to water every day in their lives. They don't have any more diseases because of that, and they don't have to walk like kilometers to have water. It's a very simple example, and I chose that instead. And we have examples that would make an advertisement on TV. Maybe this one won't have, but these are the important examples for me. Because if you ask for these 300 people, if that was just a simple water that was put on their community, or if this was a life changer for them, I'm pretty sure of what would be their answer, you know? So examples like that, we have hundreds of examples like that.
Okay, wonderful. There's a lady who's waiting patiently in the back. Could we get the microphone near her? He will bring it to you, lady, so you can ask your question. Then he will go to the gentleman in the middle row here afterwards.
Hi, my name is Jazeera. Thanks for this lecture from Jazeera. I just wanted to ask, is there any model or any advice you could give to dismantle this inequality for, like, what can individuals or, let's say, big corporations or governments can do, a simple model that we can fight inequalities? Thank you.
Great, that's a great question, Seth. And here's an information we didn't talk before, and I think you're gonna like this a lot. You know that we all have saved money, right? That we have in our banks. And the question we never ask is, our investments, what are we funding with our investments? Where are we investing our money? Because sometimes you're a pacifist and you're investing your money in the bank, and the bank is using this money to lend to a company that produces weapons. Sometimes you are someone who fights for a better environment, and you're lending this money to the bank, and you're putting this money in the bank, and the bank is lending this money to a mining company that's destroying the environment. So we did something in Brazil. It's called FINAPOP. The name is FINAPOP, the name in Portuguese, which is popular financing to things that change the world, which is, instead of investing in the bank, why don't you invest in this financial vehicle that we created under all the regulations of Brazil that will pay you a small interest rate? It's not a big interest rate. It's a small interest rate, like the savings account, which is the smaller interest rate. But we will find all the guarantees you need to know that you won't lose this money, and we will show you where this money is being invested. So we will invest this money on poor communities that will produce food with this money, that will build a plant to industrialize what they are doing today by with their hands, you know. So we handcrafted. So we started to do that, and we gathered. That was a relevant initiative here. We gathered about $5 million in Brazil that were invested in 12 communities, and today they help a total of 12,000 people in these poor communities that made they industrialize what they were doing. And we're talking about industries of milk, industries about green vegetables industries. We're talking about sausage and all those other things that are being made. And we're talking about money that was lent to those people at 5% a year. And let me make a question to you guys. Do you know how much a loan from the banks in Brazil can be made in terms of interest rates to poor people? Can someone try to guess how high an interest rate can be in Brazil to poor people? Just try to guess that. A year, in terms of percentage points a year.
As I'm hearing 10 and 20, Eduardo.
Okay, we lend at 5% a year, right? Poor people in Brazil can get money as high as more than 1,000% a year from banks, from official banks.
As
More than 1,000. Just so you have an idea, if you get $100 from a bank at 900% a year, 960% a year, which is a rate that some banks practice in Brazil, it's compounded, right? So after 5 years, you know, $100 loan, how much you owe the bank after 5 years? $14 million. $100 becomes $14 million. So can you believe how much it means to lend money to those people at 5% a year? It's something that changed the life of these 12,000 people. So that's another example, and also a way to combat, to fight inequality. Because when you have 1,000% interest rate a year, you are boosting inequality. When you have a way for those people to make their infrastructure so they don't depend on banks anymore, you're fighting inequality and you're giving capital to those people.
All right, wonderful. I think the gentleman here had a question. Could we get the microphone, Jamal, towards gentleman to ask a question here? There we go.
Thank you so much for that. Such an interesting and positive thinking and creative, multi-creative projects that you are leading. It is really inspiring. Second, I want to congratulate you for such an intellectual balance, which is getting from finance to education to news. It's not that question. My question is that in your news, in the news company, which is definitely highly respected, why not do some ads that may brings you more money to make more and fund more education program? Thank you.
That is a great question, and I think that's the question I've been more asked about over the past few years, and by my partners too, because my partners say, Eduardo, come on, let's accept the ads. And it's not just one reason. I'll give you the reasons. The first reason is to keep the utopic view of having something 100% independent. And I think that the world needs some utopic examples. We are giving up on utopia. You know, we are just accepting things how they are, because, I mean, that's the only way they can be. So not having ads and having like the full freedom of people that work in our company, it's a nod of, it's a way of telling people that we can pursue utopia in what we do in life. The second reason is that I build trust with people that follow us. And that is not built from one day to the other, you know. They open our house to us. They open our minds to us. They open their hearts to us. And when they are unarmed, when they're open to us, when they have their mind and hearts open to us, I don't want to let someone else that I don't trust to sell them their idea, because they don't build their trust with them. They don't build their confidence with them. So that's the second reason. And the third reason, tell you how far I go on that. If I accept another question, important question. You know who are the ones that try to sponsor me the most? The banks. Really, because the moment I accept one advertisement, and they would pay me millions to accept their advertisement. The moment I accept one advertisement from them, how could I go on my programs and tell about those interest rates like I'm telling you? If I receive money from them, I go I go far so far on this ideology that I don't go to social events in Brazil anymore. I stay at home, because if I go at social events, I'm going to be introduced to the same people that I used to walk. I was a partner of the largest investment bank in Latin America. If I go to those events, I would have to shake hands. I will have to hear jokes. I will have to tell intimate stories to those people. And how can I tell something that criticizes their companies on my programs? Someone that I share jokes with them, So it's like, and I'm not advocating that it has to be this way to anyone. I'm just telling that the way I decided to carry on my projects is a way that I defend myself on these conflicts of interest that are pretty hard to deal with. So it's kind of what a priest do, that he keeps himself on his house to fight temptations, And I know those things are tempting, and I feel tempted by them.
Well, Eduardo, if you can't socialize anymore in Brazil, you're welcome to come here to Hainat Salma. I'm sure we will all be happy to socialize with you and your family. Ladies and gentlemen. Oh, okay. I think there's a last question. Can we squeeze in a last question from Ambassador Fayed? I know it's almost dinner time, guys, but we won't be long. I think the mic's not on. We can't hear. Jamal, could you please?
Thank you very much. Very inspiring. And hopefully we will learn from you a lot to replicate the model elsewhere here in the Middle East to drive change. Eduardo, I've spent a good part of my life working on probabilities, risk analysis, and scenario planning. Given that you're an economist, philanthropist, social scientist, person in the media, a man of many talents and interests, I beg for your insight into the future, not like a fortune teller's future, but rather an analytical one. Having looked at the past, having looked at the present, how do you see the next couple of years, months, given the current situation of inequality, and that there's inputs and outputs. If we have inputs today that are driving inequality, what do you expect that to yield futuristically if we don't take any action? Thank you.
Okay, well, that's a very easy answer. I mean, if we fit a line to the the points, the scattered chart we have of today to the past, if we have the best line fitted to what happened until now, and we project this line to the future, it's disastrous. It's impossible to be positive to the future if we don't change anything. And you don't have to be a great scientist. You don't have to be a great statistic. I mean, you don't have to do Monte Carlo simulations. You don't have to do anything complicated to know that if we project what brought us here to the future, it's not a bright future. And see that even considering the great technologies that are being discovered and developed, which are two different things. Let me give you an example. We are here connected by electricity. Electricity was discovered by Benjamin Franklin, Nikola Tesla, by many different, Thomas Edison, many different important personalities, like about 200 years ago, more than 200 years ago. If you go to some places in Africa and also in Brazil, you have more than 70% of people, more than 2/3 of people that don't have access to electricity. So it's not just like discovering new technologies. I don't want to live in a world that we compromise most of the population of the world and make them live in poverty so that we can gather money in the hands of a few people so that they can discover the cure of cancer that will be available to only those people, because we're privatizing the systems of health in the world. So it doesn't matter for most of the people we will discover the cure of cancer if most of those people won't have access to the cure of cancer. Maybe it's better. And look, I'm going to the extreme. Of course, I want the cure of cancer. The father of my wife, he died from cancer a few years ago, and we are still sad. 3 years after that, we're still living the grief of that. But the thing is, maybe it's better to live in a world that people don't find the cure of cancer, but the entire world live a better life with access to clean water, with access to dignity, with access to food. You know, instead of trying to find this cure of cancer on the expense of billions of people that will work the entire day to concentrate money in the a handful of people so that they can finance the discovery of cure of cancer. And if they have cancer, they can cure themselves. If they want to visit Mars, they can enter on a rocket and visit Mars. I love technologies. I love tech. I'm a scientist. I have graduated in engineer. I had like a degree in economics, but my first graduation is in engineering. My hobby is to study quantum physics, the calculation of quantum physics. I love those things, but honestly, the thing I love more is to see people without the amount of suffering that they have now. I would change. I would exchange a quantum computer by like a world where people don't live without sewage, without clean water, and without the wars that we have today. That's what I think.
Amazing. Amazing. This has been such an inspirational discussion. I'm sure you would agree with me, because I'm an optimist. I like to end on an optimistic note, that the darker the night, Eduardo, the brighter the sunrise will be, right? We can agree on that. And you and people like you are an example of no matter how challenging the trajectory looks, there are examples of individuals and people who are able to make a difference. Thank you very much, Eduardo Moreira, for joining us, for sharing your experiences with us. Can I ask for a round of applause?